Yo, what's going on, everyone? This is Conversations with Brian and Elijah, and today we have an interesting episode. We're going to be discussing God and some more theological questions. And I think we've covered God in the past, but I think in this podcast, uh, we'll assume that God exists. That's
Okay.
that's the underlying assumption here, because I think we've debated God existing or not in the past.
Yeah, but
Uh,
not enough. We need to do that more because
that
there's a
is
lot more.
Yeah, so maybe we will debate that slightly here. But we wanted to start off with some. Do you want to start off with the time question?
Yeah, ask whatever question because I know you got a
Okay.
few, and
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
there's quite a bit. So go ahead.
So I had this thought, right? So I've always been curious if God, who's a supernatural being, right, could see through time, right? So he can see through, okay, this is going to happen in the future. People always say God has a plan. This is going to happen there, and that's going to happen there. And if I was God and I wanted to maximize the amount of people that believe in me,
Hmm.
I would choose to send my son when if I knew that there would be cameras and all kinds of more compelling evidence to make people convinced. I would choose to send them either now or perhaps maybe even in the future when technology is a bit more advanced, because I think that would lead to the most amount of people believing in me, right? So like, I mean, like, I think I told you, like, imagine like a CNBC interview with Jesus, or like, like a video recording of his miracles, or maybe he holds, like, he rents out the Staples Center and he like performs a miracle like in front of everyone. Everyone's like, whoa. So like, I think that would be the most compelling. But I guess the assumption there is that God wants people to believe in him, which maybe is not a fair assumption. But why wouldn't he want people to believe in him?
Okay. Okay. I have you heard of Matt? What is it? Dilhitty or something like that?
I've not. No.
Because he asked literally, he said, it would be a lot. He's a famous atheist, respectable. He said that basically it'd be a lot better to put Jesus in an electric chair today, have medical examiners determine if he was dead, and then put it all on camera, and then he comes back alive 3 days later, and then we go, oh, see, we got it, and the medical examiner's gonna go, oh, that's really him. So he asked a similar question.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second, because I want to. This is too interesting for me not to give you the greatest answer I can.
Let's go.
You already know where I'm at, right? You know where I'm at. Where did I go, Brian?
Bookshelf.
You already know.
Let's go.
Yes. I'm going to read from this book real quick. This is a brilliant quote, I think, which makes a lot of sense. Okay. In order to ensure that our choice is truly free, he puts us in an environment that is filled with evidence of his existence, but without his direct presence, a presence so powerful that it could overwhelm our freedom and thus negate our ability to reject him. In other words, God has provided enough evidence in his life to convince anyone willing to believe. It has left some ambiguity so as not to compel the unwilling. Okay, this is a very deep answer. You might go, "What? Come on, Elijah, just God, come here and show me." But this answer makes a lot of sense. Okay, because look, when you consider that God is the maximum being, right? He's the most powerful, perfect standard of good. He's the ultimate being, right? That one can conceive. That's what God is, right? Traditionally, we believe that, right? If that's the case, then if God revealed himself in that way, would we have free will to freely choose him? And the answer is no, if you think through this long enough. Because as he states here, a presence so powerful that it could overwhelm our freedom and thus negate our ability to reject him. No one would reject and willingly follow, right? That free will would be just to basically demolished. It would ruin that ability to seek after God. Does that make sense or no?
Yes, but so I mean, you basically throw out the question that God wants as many people as possible to believe in Him.
Yes, to follow, right? If God was here or whatever, it's not a genuine seeking out. It would be a lot different. You wouldn't have that freedom to choose God. Like if God completely revealed Himself to everyone, you wouldn't have a choice. Like really, you got to really think about this though. You got to like really meditate on it, because it's like if God was right here in the room, like no one would deny that, right? And if you're not denying it, you're just automatically following. So it's no longer this free will. It's almost basically extreme Calvinism, which I don't believe is true, or extreme basically determinism too, in a sense. And I don't believe that to be true. Now, I don't know. This is just one part of your question. You have multiple questions. We're going to get into all of it. This is just one of the big ones, right? Now, I believe that anyone, like I said, that wants the truth can find the truth. If you look for the evidence and the arguments and you really think about God and stuff like that, there is enough evidence to show that God is real, 100%. But that requires you to really go into it, to really look into it, to really seek after it, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. At least right now, you'd say, right? Because so if we saw Jesus perform miracles, then that would be enough evidence. We wouldn't really have to seek out much, right? Or wrong?
If we saw Him perform miracles.
If we saw Him perform miracles, we'd be like, okay, well, I mean, we saw Him perform miracles. It's not like we have to seek out His existence. I mean, I literally saw Him, right? So like if you can't really apply the same argument back in Jesus's times, right?
Well, it would be different because there's a lot of people that saw Him do those things and they still rejected Him. I think I could apply that argument actually. So they still chose not to follow Him.
But then that would also weaken your argument today, right? Like if God sent Jesus today and was like, He did all these CNBC interviews, rented out the Staples Center, all that, and I saw it, and then I still chose to reject Him, I would still have free will to reject Him. Maybe I'm just like an extreme skeptic,
No, but the difference is when you talk about God, when you talk about God and Jesus, right? So this is why I said it's going to get complicated, because we're talking about the Trinity. And they're all the same, but they're different. And that's where people go, what in the world is going on here? The best way I could explain it, I think I've told you this before, it's like H2O, right? If you take liquid, if you take a gas, if you take a solid, they're all different states, but they're all made up of H2O.
Yeah.
And so that's how that's the best way I could explain the Trinity. Now, if you want to get into okay, wouldn't it be better to send Jesus in this time now? Well, to answer your first question, yes, God is eternal. And so it's so interesting to think about how does God interact with time, right? He is eternal, so He sees all things, right? And the best way I can explain this is take a hot air balloon and take a parade. If they're walking down a street, right, the whole parade, there's the front end of the parade and the end of the parade. Okay? If you're in the hot air balloon, you could see the whole thing, right?
Yep.
You could focus on different areas. You could focus on the middle at one time, or you could focus at the end of it. You see the whole thing. You see the whole timeline, basically. That's like God's perspective of our reality, because He's outside of time. That makes sense?
That makes sense. No, 100%.
It helps?
So then
you want to get into you want to get into the why wouldn't Jesus come in NBC today and all that?
Yeah. So why would He send them? Why would He send Jesus? Okay, so He sent Jesus in order to his main reason was to try to steer humanity in the direction of proving Him, or to heal us of our sins, right? Something like that.
It's to offer a sacrifice to pay for our sins, right? I believe it's called the atonement. And to answer this question, you kind of have to have a general overview of the Bible
Right. Right.
to really understand this. Because why did it have to be at that time in particular? And
Yeah.
I think it's pretty interesting that, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this because I don't like the people that say, oh, you should just accept it because it is. But it's interesting when, if God really is real, which we're assuming he is, right?
Right.
It's interesting to me that we always go, well, if I was God, I would do it like this. What does that even mean? Like, that's the, if God is real, that's the infinite intelligence, right? That's the greatest being possible to exist. So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why are we acting like we know more than God? But anyways, to get into your question, there's so many things. I thought about this a lot last night, to be honest with you. I was like, this is a very good question. So one, you have to go with the biblical prophecies, right? Right.
Mhm.
If you go with that, the Messiah. So I was basically saying that we're not God, and I'm not using that as an argument. I don't know one go. I hate that, dude. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. But it is important to realize, yeah. Like I think it's kind of funny just to note that we always think that
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I were God, I would do it this way. Like what does that mean?
So
But yes, here. So biblical prophecy. So you have to have an overview of the whole Bible. Okay. Jesus had to fulfill these certain prophecies because he's the true Messiah. The Messiah was prophesied in the Old Testament. Old Testament is read by the Jews, right? The Torah, all that stuff. Okay. And so there's certain prophecies that he would have to fulfill in order to be the true Messiah, right? And Jesus, the whole point of Jesus coming down to earth was to sacrifice himself in order to pay off our sins so that we could be forgiven, because God is a judge. God is the ultimate judge. He will judge you with his wrath. But God took the place of that. And so,
um
or not God, Jesus took the place of that, but
right. Right.
Jesus is God, right? But same thing. And so that's kind of that. But so there's certain prophecies, right? Like the Messiah will ride in on a donkey. Okay. Well, I mean that kind of assumes a time period. I mean, I guess Jesus could ride on a donkey today, but so you have all these prophecies and stuff, and it just makes sense for me in that point of view. When you look at, how close it had to be, like, it had to be from the genealogy of King David, right? Right. So you have to be somewhat in that time period. It makes sense with the way that all the regions and stuff are placed today, but that probably doesn't satisfy you enough. So let's just hit it on directly. I think that today it would actually be worse if Jesus came.
Mhm.
And you might think, well, that's biased, but let me give you an actual argument. Today, no one believes anything. I mean, if it's on the news, people just say it's fake news. I mean, you know this to be true. Oh, that's just fake news. Um, deep fakes. I guarantee you today, the people that just don't want to believe in God, don't want to believe in Jesus, I guarantee you today, if they saw it, they would go, yep, that's a deep fake. That's not real. They would say some type of thing or whatever. Or even if you ask some of the famous atheists, like the guy I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure I heard him say that even if he saw Jesus today do those things, he still wouldn't believe that it's supernatural. He wouldn't convince him of the supernatural. And it's like, okay, what the heck, man? What is going to convince you of the supernatural?
Well, he'd probably go for, like, it's like magic or something, or
What
there's.
does that even mean? What does that even mean?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if I saw, I don't know how exactly it's described, but he healed people, like, actually, like if I had like a cut, like a giant wound, it
And
would
it
just
was,
like it
yes.
would just heal. I mean, that's kind of hard to fake. Uh,
Or how about your whole body was crucified, your skin was torn up, you were nailed to a cross, you suffocated to death, you were buried in a tomb for 3 days, and then you came back alive 3 days later. Yeah, that's pretty hard to fake.
yeah, no, that would definitely be pretty hard to fake. But I mean, look, like, okay, fine, like, if the information was distributed. Well, actually, no, that's an interesting question. I was gonna go like, okay, what if he just goes like for live events? Jesus has like a tour across, the world or something, and like rents out stadiums. But like in those times, they had this was during the Roman times, right? They had the Colosseum.
Oh, you know what? Another thing I wanted to bring up too. This is kind of a logical fallacy in the sense that, um, maybe not a logical fallacy, but it doesn't prove anything, right? Just because you say, well, even if you are on the side that I think it would have been better for Jesus to come today, it doesn't disprove the claims of Christianity. It doesn't disprove it at all. It doesn't say, well, it doesn't prove that it didn't happen or did happen. It just kind of, it's just a debate. I want to throw that out there too. That's important to know. But continue on.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, how many people were surrounding Jesus when he would perform? Like, why didn't he, go to the Colosseum, like a bunch of people around? He's okay, I'm going to heal this person in front of everyone.
Well, he kind of did, to be honest. Why? How many numbers do you need? Do you need, I believe it was let me look this up. I believe it was 5,000 people when he fed, that's a miracle. If you have like a little bit of bread and then it becomes a lot of bread to feed 5,000 people, that's
yeah. And then so there are two other things I wanted to bring up.
Yes.
First thing is I was doing some research on Judaism.
Yes.
And so basically, right, there are these prophecies in the Old Testament that Jesus fulfills in the New Testament. But one of the prophecies, I believe, is that the Messiah will bring peace and prosperity to the world or something like that, right? That he will heal all evil, which is a main contention point because obviously he hasn't yet, right? But I believe the Christian response is that he's going to come again and he'll probably do that then, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like a country price.
But if that's the case, then could you definitively say that he's the Messiah because he hasn't fulfilled that one prophecy yet? Or are you just taking him on his word?
Very, very interesting. I think you're kind of okay. I'm gonna
try to get what I'm getting at here.
I do get what you're getting at. I have a friend who, if she's listening, because we're like best friends, she's Jewish, so we always get into this.
Interesting.
Yeah, I got Muslim friends, Jewish friends, atheist friends.
Let's go. Yeah.
I got every type of friend possible. I like to this is a side note, but I like to surround myself with opposing ideas. And
let's go.
The truth went out. Let the truth went out, right? Did you see that hashtag? All right. Let the truth went out. Very good.
I love doing that because I don't know. It's more interesting. It's like more productive.
And you get closer to the truth.
Yeah, you get closer. Either it changes your mind or you find a way to strengthen your argument. And to me, that's fun. And sometimes it could be uncomfortable, but I love
being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Jesus did not bring peace to the world, so therefore he's not the Messiah because it's stated in the Old Testament, right? There's actually other things in the Old Testament that Jesus didn't fulfill as well. Like, for example, it says that in Daniel, if you read the book of Daniel, it says that it says that the Messiah will come on the form of a cloud. Well, Jesus did not come on a cloud, he came on a donkey, which is one of the prophecies. So you say, well, he's not the real Messiah then. However, my response to this is really, if you look at what Jesus says when he talks about the second coming, if you read the book of Revelations, which is very interesting, it talks about, Jesus says that he said, you will see me on the right hand of the Father coming on a cloud. So he will fulfill that prophecy on his second coming. And he talks about how he is going to bring peace on his second coming. When he comes from the church, he's going to bring peace to the earth. And all these things are going to happen. So Jesus talks about all these prophecies are going to be fulfilled on the second coming. So then my question to my Jewish friends is simply this. Logically, you would say, well, the old interpretation of the Messiah was not the one of Jesus. So why should we take Jesus' understanding of the Messiah? And I would say, well, one, because of the resurrection, which we'll go back in a second, but two, let's look at it from a logical point of view. It says the Messiah will be coming on a donkey. It also says that he'll be coming on a cloud. You can't do those both simultaneously. It just doesn't work logically, right? That's a contradiction.
Yeah. I mean, did they name donkeys back in those days? Like, what if the donkey's name is cloud?
Oh, it's very explicit, very explicit. It's clearly a donkey and clearly a cloud. So then it's like, okay, logically, it sounds like there'd have to be two comings to the earth then, right? that would be logically, if my logic is wrong, please correct me. So then it's like, okay, well, Jesus did come in on a donkey, but then he also is going to come in on a cloud. The whole interpretation of the Messiah is that basically Jesus or the Messiah is going to be a political figure that is built the Jewish kingdom, right? That's what the interpretation is. Where Jesus's kingdom was the kingdom of God. That's how right? And so it's a radical different. And so why trust Jesus? One, because of logic, and then number two, because of the resurrection, right? I mean, the thing that I say with any religion, they say, well, how can you verify? Actually, it was weird. I was walking, not walking, obviously, but I was going down the street a couple days ago, or yesterday. My mind is all over the place right now because this stuff just gets me thinking. And this guy was talking to my mom, and they're talking, and I heard them talking about religion. And so I bumped into him and I started giving him some stuff. And he's like, wow, you really know your stuff. And it's funny because I use this with anybody. He said, well, how can you know that the Bible is actually true? I don't know if you could say it's actually true. And my answer to anybody is, well, it's verifiable because of the resurrection. And it even says that, I believe in Luke, or not Luke, it says in 2 Corinthians, somewhere basically, I think 2 Corinthians 15. It basically, or maybe it's 1 Corinthians 15. It's one of those. But basically it says that if the resurrection didn't happen, your faith is futile. Okay? And it's really that simple. Even the Bible says it, right? So if the resurrection actually happened, that verifies it to be true. If it didn't happen, then it's not true. Like, you could literally disprove the Bible very simply by disproving the resurrection. And so then the reason I bring this up is because if you're a Jew and you go, well, then why should we trust Jesus' interpretation? It's because of the resurrection. That is the ultimate proof of divinity. My Jewish friend says, well, maybe it was the work of the devil, right? That's her answer. And then my question to her as a Jew is, where in the Old Testament does God allow or permit the devil to resurrect someone from the dead? Right? God resurrecting Jesus from the dead is the ultimate vindication. And to get more into theology, right? Because we're just assuming God's real. So if you're one of those people that say God's not real, well, we're not debating that right now. Okay, we're assuming God's real. It's so annoying, by the way. No arguments. In the Bible, God has to allow the devil to tempt someone. He permits it.
Right. Yeah. And that's a perfect segue.
Sure.
Because I was reading or skimmed, Satan tempts Jesus. And I'm like, wait a minute, okay. Can Satan tempt God then? No, right?
I like
because
that.
because
I like that.
Jesus is God, but perhaps he has some human qualities that allow him to be tempted. But then that wouldn't make him entirely God, right?
So this is very interesting, right? So Jesus, right, being the Son of God, right? So he's God, but he's also man. He came in the form of a man. Okay, and so this is going to get complicated really quickly.
Right.
Because I don't know how familiar you are with the Trinity and how much you thought about it, but by him being tempted by the devil shows the humanity side of Jesus. Another area that shows the humanity side of Jesus, which I think is really interesting as well, is when he's on the cross dying, right? He was suffering a lot of pain, and people may have gone and thought, well, he's God, so he didn't really experience that pain, so whatever. But no, he did experience that pain, and he demonstrates his humanity again because he said, I thirst. And that, that shows humanity right there. That's a human quality to drink water and whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, to be tempted by the devil, I think is demonstrating that humanity side.
Interesting.
And it's complicated, but
Satan can't tempt God, can he?
It's an interesting question. I would like to check more on that. I mean, it depends on I know this is like getting like, okay, why are you asking? What do you mean by? But what do you mean by tempting God. Like, what does that mean? Because, like, for example, if you read the book of Job, in the Old Testament, the devil starts questioning God a lot. Like, oh, Job only is so loyal to you because you bless him with all these things, like whatever. Is that a temptation? Like, but God can do whatever he wants because God is the maximum being, right? So it's like, it's complicated, I think.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to do more research on that, but I don't think I think that the answer about Jesus being tempted in the wilderness is that was his humanity side being tempted.
Interesting.
And I think that's because look, we're supposed to live as Christ if you take the Christian worldview. And so he's showing us how to deal with temptations. Every time that Jesus was tempted, he responded, "It is written." I believe he even said, "You should not tempt your Lord your God," or whatever, right?
I'm not sure.
Oh, because that's what I don't know if you skimmed over that part too. That's like in that same area.
Interesting. Yeah. And then the Holy Spirit comes in the form of a bird. Or am I tripping?
Are you talking about like the dove?
Yeah, the dove, right? Or do I have that completely wrong? I've always thought it was that.
Now I'm not even gonna lie to you. You kind of confused me now. Now I want to read it again to know because I don't want to say something that's not true.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I do know that it symbolized something. I know it's like, I think the Father spoke actually. So this is my son.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I need to.
Did you ever find it so interesting how, even from a secular point of view, because I think even from a secular point of view, we could appreciate the greatness of the literature of the Bible. I mean, it is like,
it's fair.
It's really profound. It's I don't know. I'm amazed by it, and I actually feel like that itself is an argument for the divinity of it. But
I mean, I know it's definitely
maybe not the strongest argument for the divinity.
Yeah.
But definitely, for me at least, it's like, how could one make? Because look, this is another thing you have to keep in mind. We know for a fact that, like, if you look at like Genesis and Exodus and these other chapters early on in the Old Testament, they were written like 4,000 years before the New Testament. So these are different authors. So it's not like it's one man, like, I'm going to write this whole book,
Right. Yeah.
And it still carries on that same story. And it's like, how did they do it? Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, how did that happen unless it's an actual true narrative?
Yeah, I mean, it is profound, and there's some good stories. Even if you're, atheist, there are definitely some like lessons to be learned. But I mean, there's definitely a lot of other very profound things. Like, I took a course on Shakespeare, and like Shakespeare wrote some really, really profound stuff.
Yeah, where do you get a lot of that stuff from? That's true.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying he got some of the stuff from everything comes from the Bible? I mean,
I'm not saying no. Hold up. I didn't say everything. But
yeah.
But a lot of it was inspired by the Bible.
Right. We haven't. You should do some research on the Epic of Gilgamesh. I know we brought it up a couple times. Do you know anything about that? How it's
are you talking about? Go ahead.
It's the theory is that the Epic of Gilgamesh was written way before the Old Testament, and so it's basically the same stories are in the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Old Testament. Like, there's a flood, and you have someone, an ark and all this stuff. Just the names are changed pretty much.
Text me that. I'm gonna look into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear a lot of these things today, like Horus, for example, the Egyptian god. I did more research on that. They said, oh, well, he was born of a virgin, that he was resurrected 3 days later, crucified, all these things that are just simply not even true. Like, some of them were made out of thin air.
Yeah.
And then there's actually counter evidence to counter it. So I want to look into this Epic of
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh, yeah.
Yeah. It's an epic poem that's written in the form of a narrative. It's not that long, actually. But yeah, it's an interesting story for sure. Let me see. Do you have any other theological questions here?
Well, I want to make sure are you satisfied with the answers or not really? And just because I want to go deeper into them if it didn't really.
No, yeah, I think I'm satisfied with the answers, but it's still definitely. I mean, there's certain things that are definitive, but I wouldn't say it's definitive counter evidence, perhaps. Because is it safe to assume,
Counter evidence of what?
uh, or the whole, why did Jesus send him now or before?
Oh, like the timing of
Your
Jesus.
answers to that, yeah, I thought they're satisfactory, but I'm not sure if it's definitive in that sense. If that makes any sense. What's it called? Is it safe to say that God is God rational all the time? I've heard people say that God is neither rational nor irrational.
And what is he?
He's just a supernatural being that supersedes rationality. I don't know. But can you say God is rational, right? You could say that.
I would say that God is the ultimate standard of logic and rationality. Yeah, that's my belief. Now,
Interesting.
I always find this interesting because some people say, well, if God's all powerful, can he create a rock so heavy that he can't lift it? Right?
Right,
I
yeah.
always find that very humorous because God is ultimately all logical, right? So when you're all powerful, that doesn't mean you can break the laws of logic. Like God created everything within logic. He is logic.
Hmm.
And it's weird if you really get down into it. The Greek word for God, I believe, was it logos? I think I'm pronouncing that right, which means like mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you really start to break that all down, it's like, okay, that's the ultimate mind. Like, and that is like logic. Like it's interesting, like how you tie that all together. But like, no, God can't break logic. Like he can't create a square circle, and it doesn't even make sense to ask that question to begin with because it's illogical. Like, why would you ask that? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, no, do you get what I'm do you get what I'm getting at? Like, I don't mean that in like a rude way. Like, I mean that like seriously, like your position already is illogical. And so I just don't understand why people even ask that question. I think it's like one of those gotcha questions, but it doesn't even make sense to begin with. And but yeah, no, I would say God's all logical.
But so then that would imply he's all rational, right?
Yes.
So okay, so then he would perhaps, and which by the way, God is a he.
That's how. Yeah. Okay. This is another one of people. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Because people, I've heard also people say that God is neither a man nor a woman. He's a supernatural being that doesn't have a gender, perhaps.
I'm gonna. So before I say what I'm gonna say, I want to say I'm going to do more research on this. So what I'm about to say, don't take this as 100%. But I believe that Jesus was a man, obviously, but
Right.
the Father in heaven, right, is referred to as a he. But I don't think necessarily that God is a he or she. I think that we talk about Father and he for our understanding, and that's how God wants us to understand him because he has that fatherly love, that kind of presence, right? He loves his children as a father would, and so I think that's why we refer to him as the Father. But I don't think necessarily that God has male qualities or whatever. I don't. Actually, I don't even think that. Well, I don't know. I want to do more research on that. But does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
What I said? I don't think, if you're going to say, oh, well, then God's a she. No, I don't think that either. I think God is an entity, the all-powerful entity, all-knowing, timeless, immaterial entity. That's what he is. And then he manifested himself inside of a man, which would be Jesus. And then you have the Holy Spirit as well.
So,
yes.
I mean, obviously you can't answer this because you've never like seen God, perhaps, but like, is he? Well, I mean, I guess you can't answer this. It's not that he looks like a human, right? Or could he, perhaps? You know what I mean? Because you know that you see those pictures, and it's like God with like a beard and
Yeah. All false. I don't believe that to be true. No, I don't believe that to be true. Now, and I was gonna say that, but then the reason I hesitated is because there is a verse in the Bible that Jesus said that you'll see me sitting at the right hand of the Father. And so, I mean, if there's a hand, what is that? You know, that makes me interested in what that.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think, you know what I'm saying? Like the whole notion that God is somehow this white guy who has a beard in heaven. I mean, I don't know where that comes from. I think that probably comes from the Renaissance time period of man trying to understand God and draw him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were all a bunch of white dudes, so they, you know, draw what we look like. But I don't think it's necessarily true that God, you know, is a specific gender
Looks a certain way.
or race or whatever. No, yeah. I mean, God transcends all that.
Uh-huh. So it could just be a voice, or I mean,
Perhaps no, Jesus is a man. That's
but God can take any form he wants. You know what I mean? Like, could he like?
Well, I assume he could. Yeah,
Okay.
he's all powerful, but it depends on what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, like, could he? You know, like, I mean, how is he? He's not described at all in the Bible besides the right hand.
He probably is, but like I said, man, I don't even know. I don't know. I'm so you kind of fired me up. You said that your goals in life is to read like all three texts
Yeah.
of the Judaism, Islam, and Christianity.
Yeah.
I literally went out and bought an $80 study Bible, and I'm already reading it. I'm attempting to read the whole thing. And by the way, let me just tell you what I found already. Maybe you'll find this one because I don't know. You're curious. You like stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm starting to read, like on a real deep level now, right?
Wait, what book? You cut out. Sorry.
Genesis,
Oh, Genesis. Okay, got it.
the first book. Uh, Judaism. Another big thing is the Trinity, right? They don't necessarily believe in the Trinity, that there's a Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. But in Genesis, I believe it's 1:3. But it says, let us create man in our image. God said, quote, let us, right? Create God or create man in our image. Okay. You're looking at me like you're crazy.
Wait. So you're saying that God could be multiple people?
He's
Oh,
the Trinity.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Trinity.
Got it.
And if you read the New Testament, it always talks about how Jesus was there with the Father from the beginning.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of instances where Jesus shows up in the Old Testament. But the New Testament says he was always there, but that's the New Testament. So then you got to go to the Old Testament if you're talking to someone maybe that just accepts the Old Testament, a Jew, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, too, is if you go to Isaiah, let's do this real quick. So if we go to Isaiah 48, I'll pull it up. I got it on my phone. 48:16. It says this: "Come near to me," and this is God speaking. Okay, come near to me. Hear this. I have not spoken in secret from the beginning. From the time that it was, I was there. And now the Lord God and His Spirit have sent me. Okay, let's literally just do some logic. Number one, the Lord God, 1. His Spirit, 2. Have sent me, 3. That's the Trinity, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so very clearly stated. I don't know if that's clear to you, but it's very clear to me.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
So, if you just really look at this thing from a deep point of view, and you really seek after the truth, I genuinely believe that you will end up going, "Wow, okay, it's really there."
Interesting. Yeah. I've always wanted to read the 3 books, but the Old Testament is the Torah. There's no difference, right?
Yeah, it's the Old Testament. So if you just read the whole Bible, you got 2 of them down. You just need to read the Quran now.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I was looking up. I wanted to. Are there other religious books that the Jewish people follow? Or is it just the Torah, the Old Testament?
I believe it's just the Torah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. I've always wanted to read all the religious texts. I read the Analects. I don't know if you know about Confucianism. It's like a Buddhist kind of religion. It's a pretty interesting book. But I don't know, man. I've always been fascinated in like religion and stuff like that. So these are definitely interesting questions. I have nothing else to ask. Do you haven't want anything to bring up?
Yeah, I do. I
Let's
do.
go.
What would be the ultimate thing for you to convince you that Christianity is true? What would you need evidence, intellectual wise, or what do you need to go, this is true? And part two question, I want you to answer part two before you answer part one.
Okay.
Do you agree that the truth is the truth and we should accept it as it is, whether we like it or not?
The truth is the truth. Absolutely. That doesn't mean you shouldn't question it though.
Okay, that's fair. But I mean, accept it, right? For example,
Yeah.
what I'm really getting at here is because I think this is honestly what happens nowadays. If Christianity is true, the Bible is true, but there's certain rules or new way of life that you have to live, which in the moment seems like it would be worse. But when you really think about it deeply, you actually see that, wow, okay, that will lead to a better life long-term wise. And I'm not talking about heaven or hell. I'm literally talking about on earth today. Kind of like making your sacrifice, kind of like what Jordan Peterson always talks about.
Right. Yeah.
Would that be acceptable to you? So, like, in other words, yes, this is true, but I don't want to follow these rules. However, I know I should because it's true. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. An interesting thought. I think we brought it up in another podcast. So if I believe in Jesus, I will go to heaven.
Well, it depends on what you mean. Why? It's
Um,
not just believe; it's repentance too. This is getting real theological again. But it's like the way it works, right? I think people think that when you become a Christian or whatever, that you have to follow all these rules to a T, that you can never make mistakes, and that it's basically what is called
salvation by works, right?
legalism, or salvation by works, which it's not the case at all. Now, if you're someone that really loves God and wants to live like Christ, you're going to naturally want to follow the rules and do right. But that doesn't mean that you're going to not slip up, which is literally the whole point of Jesus coming to begin with, is that we are all sinners. Every single day we all sin. Every day. Like, the view of the Bible is that you're a terrible, evil, disgusting, despicable, filth of the earth person. Okay, you're not a good person. Get that out of your head right now. Like, everyone always says, I'm a good person. Why? I donate to charity. It's like, no, you're not a good person. Like, how do you define good? Like, how do you justify good or bad? That's another whole thing, right? The moral argument. And so when you go down that, you're going to see that, no, I'm actually a terrible person. I need a savior. Like, I need to be restored back to perfection in order to be with the maximum good being. That makes total logical sense if you draw it out.
Honestly, the most compelling evidence, I wouldn't even say evidence, the most compelling reason why to subscribe to perhaps Christianity or maybe even any religion is why not? So like, I think you brought it up, like this whole idea of, okay, let's say like you're wrong and like, there is no God, there's nothing. Well, then, I mean, did you really lose anything? Right? Nothing much. But this is an interesting question. If I was an atheist my whole life, and then, I'm on my deathbed, and 5 minutes before I die, I, say that Jesus is the savior and all this stuff, will I still go to heaven even though I lived a life of not believing in him?
Do you really believe it at the end? Because it's not just fireproof insurance where oh, if I just say this prayer, I'm saved. It's God always talks about judging the heart, and He knows your heart, right? So like even if you do good things and you're trying to do good works, but you don't really care, you're just doing it for the approval of others because you want to look good. You're not. That's not that you are looking very bad in the eyes of God. It's all about the heart, and it talks about that over and over in the Old Testament and in the New. It talks about softening your heart. Your heart gets hardened is what is talked about when you keep rejecting God. You just become stubborn, you just full of hate. But when you accept Christ, it talks about softening your heart and becoming more pure with your intentions, with whatever you genuinely donate to charity because you believe in the cause and you want to see good in the world, not because you want other people to look at you and go, oh, you're such a great person for donating to charity. You you do things with pure intentions. So
Right. Yeah.
my question would be, I don't know, what is the intentions of that person? Did they really go realize, wow, I wasted my whole life not believing, I really see God there. Oh God, please have mercy on me, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I accept you. That would be a genuine belief in God at that point, not just, okay, pastor, I will pray the prayer real quick so I have fireproof insurance. Like, what is that? In your heart, do you even really believe?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think for me is I would want to before I choose a religion, perhaps I would want to evaluate all other holy texts and then make the best judgment from there. You know what I mean? That seems to be the most logical thing. I don't know, but then some people would say, well, the evidence here of this particular book is so overwhelming that all other books perhaps might not be as true. You know what I mean?
Well, but what kind of truth? Because look, I kind of subscribe to the second statement you said,
Yeah.
because, like I said, the resurrection is all that matters. If you prove the resurrection to be true, because like I wrote to you in that letter, Islam states that the resurrection never happened. It states that Jesus wasn't even crucified. And so, well, did he or did he not? It's like, it's really that simple. But I do agree with you, and I do this all the time. I like to evaluate other texts of other religions. I like to see what they say. I like to see other claims or whatever. But do you really so I'm actually interested. I'm surprised. You think that the best argument for God is, what do I have to lose, basically?
I think that's the best argument for believing in God, perhaps.
Like following a religion?
Yeah, following a religion.
Okay, but then my question is, well, what religion? Like,
yeah, exactly.
how would that? Like, how does that argument help with that?
Yeah. Maybe I don't honestly, I don't even know, but I definitely want to read all the religious texts.
Yes.
And I don't know. I think. I mean, isn't there some commonality between all of them? All of them believe in a higher power, right?
Well, if you're talking about the monotheistic, because if you get to other ones,
Abrahamic, yeah.
Okay. Yes, they all believe in a higher power. True, but their beliefs become very greatly different when you break them down. Like, for example, like I keep bringing up the resurrection. That's the most important thing. Like we've already shown that if your skin was torn up, you were crucified, you're dead, and then you come resurrected where your skin is completely healed. So, Brian, remember how you showed me your arm? You said if it was like cut, real big cut, and then it was healed? Yeah. Imagine your whole flesh and your whole body was torn up, and then it was healed. Okay, that's literally what I'm saying happened. And I'm saying that a guy was dead and then came back alive 3 days later in a completely renewed body. I'm saying, yes, that actually happened. That should be the ultimate proof of the divinity right there.
Interesting.
And so that's what I would focus. But just to prove that, like my point now at this point is God exists 100%. Like from an intellectual point of view. Like I've been learning some new philosophical stuff, like the Aristotelian proof, right? An actual or an unactualized actualizer or unmoved mover. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's unstoppable. That argument is unstoppable. Um, so we can, that's just about if God exists or not. But when it comes to particular belief systems, I believe that Christianity is the only, well, actually, no, logically, Christianity is the only religion that can be verified, meaning you could prove it or disprove it. I can't really go to other religions such as Islam or Judaism when they just had a bunch of prophets. They never even claimed to be God themselves. Where Christianity, you have this figure, Jesus of Nazareth, who claims to be God. Okay, are you God then? Like, yes or no? Like, Jesus, you say you're God. Are you God? You're going to have to demonstrate that. Where if I go to Muhammad or if I go to another religion, I don't see that at all. They don't even claim to be God. They just claim to be messengers of God.
But I mean, but by verifiable, I mean Muhammad and I think even Siddhartha, who became Buddha, they were all real historical figures, and I think historians.
Yes.
But by verifiable, you mean
Divinity.
Divinity.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying like the miracles were documented in that sense?
I'm saying, like, if a guy comes back, if a guy claims to be God, okay, well, is he God then? And
Right,
if he
right, yeah,
demonstrates
yeah.
divinity and do things like that, then that demonstrates he is God.
Mm-hmm.
But
Interesting.
if no one else is even claiming to be God, I mean, I guess you could argue, well, they could perform miracles to show that they're in connection to the true God. But that's a lot less than actually saying, I am God, and let me prove it to you. You see what I'm saying?
Interesting. Yeah. Uh, yeah. That's I love talking about theology, even though I'm not necessarily that well versed in the Bible, but I want to start reading stuff, reading different religious texts. I'm
Yes.
definitely gonna start doing that.
So wait, I want to get an answer though. So what would you need from an intellectual or evidence or really just anything in order to convince you that it's true? What burden of proof is needed?
Um, I mean, besides physically seeing it,
So you're telling me you need to see Jesus today in real life
well, no,
to
I'm no, no, no. I'm saying that would be the most compelling evidence.
Oh, okay.
Besides that, right? Obviously, that'd be the most compelling if you actually saw it.
So much so that I would argue that you would lose your free will. But yes.
I think we talked. But
Remember going
if
back
we
to,
saw this, we would lose our free will to choose.
yes. Like if God revealed himself, remember we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast?
Yeah. I remember. But I
Same.
mean, but at the same time, but Jesus did reveal himself to people. So all those people lost their free will to choose.
Uh, very well played. I think that's
So
no,
if all the
no, because
eyewitnesses lost their free will to choose, then I mean, it seems like the whole structure depends on these eyewitnesses telling other people, right?
yes.
So
Because God didn't reveal, because Jesus didn't, appear to everybody. He appeared to a select few, and the
right,
people that
right,
he did reveal himself to, they believed so much so that they were willing to be crucified for their beliefs, like literally crucified by the Roman
right,
Empire.
yeah.
So there's something going on there. That's a historical fact.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, at the same time, right? Like, there's some people that will, even if they saw it, they would still have the free will to not believe, right? If I saw something, I'd be like, there's something fishy going on. I don't know. It's maybe.
Okay, very very smart, very smart. I would agree, but I'm saying it would get to the point to where it's like you basically don't have free will. Like, yes, you still technically would probably have that choice to deny God, because I'm not saying I'm arguing on Calvinism, that Calvinist view, but to a point to where it's just not likely. Like at 99%, you're going to follow now if you saw the risen Christ.
Okay, very likely. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think there's a lot of different religions that make different claims, and I want to really analyze each individual claim and make a truth judgment based on that. That's perhaps why I don't subscribe. I mean, I was baptized Catholic. I mean, I do believe in a higher power. I just don't know exactly what. So I want to read every religious text and then make a truth judgment based on that. And I think that'd be the best thing. Now, I brought something up another podcast. I wanted to bring it up now about being born into a certain religion. Is a big isn't that a big bias based on how you perceive the religion you currently are? In the sense of like you're born into a religion and you already have certain biases on how you view that religion. You know what I mean? Most people are not actively trying to disprove the religion that they're born into. You're looking into evidence on how to prove it even more, which is like sort of like confirmation bias. You know what I mean? I think there was a study of uh, most people don't convert religions entirely. Either they stay the same religion or they go atheist. Like it's usually you don't transfer into other religions. Um, so I mean that's not necessarily evidence to disprove in the existence of that particular religion, but it could be interesting in terms of like bias, your bias on research. You know?
Um, so yeah, you're saying we're not going to commit the genetic fallacy. We're basically going to say how one came to believe a certain belief, but that doesn't explain away the belief itself.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't say that explains away the belief itself, but I mean at the same time, like isn't it kind of uncomfortable to challenge beliefs that you already know? Like, I mean, you would essentially be challenging your family, you know, which a lot of times most people are not comfortable with doing that, you know?
I believe that. Well, one, I do that. Like that's what I did since I was 11. I challenged, well, why is this book true? Like,
Yeah,
why is
yeah.
the Bible true? I can't just believe it because that's just crazy. So one, I think that everyone wants to search for truth, which I want to bring up something about that in a second. Remind me on that, okay?
Okay.
This is very
Cool.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
But I believe that God of the Bible reveals himself to everybody in different times. And by reveal, I don't mean like literally comes down and I'm
Yeah, yeah.
God, but gives an opportunity for them to see the truth. And I think that if people are willing enough, courageous enough to allow themselves to search for that truth, they will find it. And so, even if you are of a different religion, I mean, there's tons of converts all the time. People convert all the time.
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, I do think that, yes, you would say that someone might have some type of bias if they're born into a particular religion, but I do think within their lifetime, they will run into someone who will spread them the truth, and they will have an opportunity to see it. And if you want to talk about certain areas where they don't know that, where they never heard of Jesus or never heard of the Bible, well, it also says that God is the most perfect judge there is. That's another attribute of God. He's going to judge you based off of your knowledge on what you do know. So a lot of people in America, they don't really have an excuse because they do know, right? But
Right.
in other nations where maybe it's a theocracy, where a religion rules everything, and or the religions are banned, perhaps it's China. God's going to judge you based on what you know, what you truly know, though, right? So for people in America, it's hard for us to go, well, yeah, they don't know but some, like, they don't know what Jesus is or they've never heard, because basically everyone in America has, all right, TV, internet, all these people in general, there's so many different ways. Where in other nations where it's banned and like completely authoritarian,
Right. Yeah.
they may not know. They truly may not know. And if they truly don't know, God's going to judge them off their knowledge. And I believe that God is a fair judge.
But it's not like, you know, I mean, how deep of a knowledge do you need to know? Like, I mean, if you know, let's say you're
Okay,
under an
if you
authoritarian regime, and then you hear about this thing called Christianity, you're like, oh, okay, what do they believe in Jesus? They believe in all that, and you kind of just brush it off. I mean, do you have to really like be like, okay, no, someone has to sit you down and explain to you like what the deal is? Like, how deep of a knowledge do you need?
I think it's once again, I think it's one of those questions where God will kind of take care of that But if you were to ask me what I think, right, I think it's sufficient knowledge where you truly have the opportunity to accept or deny Christ. You totally know the rules, you totally know the game, you know what's going on, right? God's going to judge a 4-year-old different than he's going to judge a 21-year-old.
Hmm.
All right. It's just like I believe our courtrooms, once again, I need, so I don't want to make any false claims, but I believe our courtrooms in America were inspired by the Bible in the sense that God is a fair judge and all of our circumstances are different. We don't try minors the same as we try adults.
Hmm. Um. So I mean, could I? So you said people in America, you know, obviously a lot of them. Well, yeah, but then again, God would be the ultimate judge. But if I just go through life and not really exposed to religion much, uh, I could perhaps be judged differently, right? Like right now, obviously, I'm really interested in religion. You know, I'm gonna read the
Oh,
Bible.
you're.
I'm screwed, right?
I was gonna say that, but I didn't want to say that. But
But let's say we go back, you know, what, 3 years or so, and I'm not that interested in religion. You know, maybe I wasn't really born into a religious family, and you know, I hear about this thing called Christianity, but I don't really do too much research into it. I mean, I'd be judged differently, right?
yes, but
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to. It's hard for anyone to make these arguments because we don't know what you
'Cause,
think or know inside your heart. You know what I'm saying? We don't know. Like, what is
uh,
your knowledge? I don't know. Like,
yeah, yeah,
did you truly understand? Or you not understand? Like, I don't know. I'm not you. You know what I mean? Like, or I'm not anyone that asked this question. So it's kind of a hard thing. But maybe I'll write this out and then I'll have a better answer for you. But it's really about the intention of one's heart and what they really believe.
yeah, yeah. Cool. I feel that.
So I
Uh,
have something to say about truth.
boom. Oh yeah, truth, truth. Go for it.
I'm obsessed with the truth. I love the
Let's
truth.
go.
And I was thinking really deeply about it a couple days ago. And why do humans aim at truth? Like, if you take a naturalist point of view, right? Evolution doesn't explain why we seek truth, and it can't. All evolution says is for us to be the most fit to survive. And it's not necessarily linked or clear that the truth makes you more fit to survive. It actually may turn out to be true that believing in falsehoods makes you live longer. So, where did this notion of us seeking the truth or this
Hmm.
thing inside of us that wants the truth so bad come from?
Well, aren't people more comfortable in something they know is true definitively, right? Like if I really truly believe that something is true, I'm gonna feel a lot more comfortable. You know, like if I'm in limbo, I don't know if this is true or not, I'm gonna feel less comfortable. So I mean, wouldn't you say the root cause of it is people enjoy being comfortable in certain things?
Well, no, because the truth makes you very uncomfortable a lot of times, does it not?
Interesting. Um, yeah, I guess theoretically it shouldn't, but it seems like it does,
Yes,
right?
which implies, yes, but my point is, I think the conclusion is it implies that truth must be something beyond our physical world. I mean, look, man, if you read the Bible, it's interesting. Jesus always says that who's ever on the side of truth is on the side of me. And he claimed to be the truth.
Hmm. Um, yeah, honestly, I don't know. I mean, the reason why I went with the uncomfortableness is because don't humans always want to explain things, right? Like if we don't know something, everyone is like, you know, the research community is always trying to explain it away, uh, which seems to go to fit with this idea that we seek the truth makes us comfortable. But I mean, perhaps some truths are hard to accept, which makes them uncomfortable. But I mean, isn't that but okay, so there are certain things that are definitively true, right?
Hmm.
And everything else can be debatable. So then perhaps,
But some things are more true than others. We're going to get into Jordan Peterson right now. What
right.
what is truth? How do you define truth? And honestly, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. Oh, I'm so mad. If you read in Pontius Pilate, he's presiding over the trial of Jesus. And Jesus is like, I am the truth or whatever, right? And Pontius Pilate goes, what is truth? He asked Jesus, what is truth? And it just ends. I want to know what the parent, son of God, how he would have defined what truth is. I mean, that would have been so profound, but we don't know.
mm-hmm.
That sucks. But we don't, yeah, how do you define truth? You know, but I'm like, yeah, but like Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So he claimed to be the truth. And it's like, wow. So it's like we have this obsession with truth. It's like Jesus claimed to be God. And it's like, is there some type of link there? I mean, like I'm telling you right now, I think the truth is beyond just the material world. It has to be our desire for it, at least. Jesus apparently is God. God's beyond the material world. Is there a link between the two? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
See how I'm kind of, I don't know. I need to think about it, but I do think the truth is interesting.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, man, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I wanted to, for some reason yesterday, maybe, yeah, this is probably going to have to be a separate podcast because this is like something completely different. I wanted to know what your take is on UFOs. I got into a UFO rabbit hole yesterday.
We have a perfect person.
And
special guest.
yeah, and I got into a rabbit hole, and for some reason I started to link that with, I mean, what would that do to like God and stuff like that?
Oh, if aliens exist, what happens to God?
Yeah.
I thought about this quite a bit, to be honest with you.
Is that a weird question to ask? Because it seems to spiral into the whole conspiracy theory rabbit hole, and like, okay, what if God was the extraterrestrial, or Jesus was, and maybe UFOs are the extra? You know what I mean? It gets kind of into a weird.
But it philosophically falls apart with that because God is the maximum being. He has to be God. The divine attributes of God is timeless, immaterial. So an alien is still within our universe. He's not immaterial, not timeless. Still bounded by those same laws, not supernatural. But I do think it's interesting about the whole alien thing. Like, if there was aliens, what would that do with God, right? It'd be very interesting, to be honest with you. Me and my 11th grade astronomy teacher, shout out Mr. Scott, if you're listening, I love you. We just, honestly, bro, we gotta talk about what I did in high school. I didn't even do things in high school. I just talked to my teachers all day and debated stuff with them because I was like bored with the work. But we were talking, and I was like, what? He was a Christian, and I was like, well, if it turned out that we found other planets that had basically, so look, two things. If we found other planets that had, well, actually, now that I think about it, it's a logical fallacy. It doesn't disprove anything. But this is what I said at the time, and I completely denounced my old 11th grade self today. But anyways, in terms of that. But what I did say to him is, if we found that other planets had religious books and these concepts of God, and they like created like these stories, I would think that would kind of undermine religion, like Christianity, whatever. But now that I think about it, that doesn't logically disprove it at all. Like, it would be a logical fallacy. It doesn't necessarily disprove it.
Yeah, what would be crazy to me is if we found other religious texts, and then some Jesus-like figure came to them as well. I mean, imagine that.
Jesus. Yeah, I don't. That it would be interesting. But what if we found the exact Bible on other?
Yeah. No, if
that would be
nuts for sure. And it's like literally written like the same. That would be I think that would be
Where did you get that from? Did aliens come here and steal it? Is God put his holy, because it is his word as he claims, is it on all his creations? Like what? Why? That would be a very fascinating thing. But honestly, I don't even know if I believe in aliens. Like, I know a lot of people say, well, the universe is so vast and so big, and it just there has to be aliens there. But I read Stephen Hawking's book, Brief Answers to Big Questions, is the last book he wrote. And he kind of gives a really compelling thing that, intelligent life is just, as far as I understand, I'm going to reread it. It's not likely. And if you think about it, like, look up our solar system, our area. Look up our solar system.
Yeah.
We have the perfect conditions for life as we know it. Now, someone might say, well, life might be different, but I have a hard time imagining that, because we know what's within the periodic table, and based on what we know about life is, like, we can't see how any other elements combined together could create life.
Yeah.
As far as what we know. And so I think that, no, we have the perfect conditions needed to do it. So I think that it's very unlikely that life exists outside of our solar system.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about that, dude? It's a little too perfect. I don't know. Isn't it crazy how
yes.
much of a coincidence it's been, and how it's
not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence.
Well, how come an asteroid hasn't hit us? Or, it has, but like,
it's not. I will tell you. I'm going to tell you this is very true. God is real. That's the answer. Now, okay. And you might say, oh, come on, Elijah. Really? I thought you were an intellectual. You just hit me with that. Yes. There's actually an argument. Okay, there's a lot of cosmological arguments. The argument that I'm talking about, look it up. It's called the fine-tuning argument for the existence of God. And if you look at how finely tuned our universe is, the universe as a whole, and then it gets even more fine-tuned when you go to our solar system and then our Earth, and it's just super fine-tuned. So much so that if we were like 1 degree closer to, I think it's like if we were 1 degree, something like this. So 1 degree closer to the sun, like we wouldn't exist. 1 degree further from the sun, we wouldn't exist. Like, it's so finely tuned. So much so that it's mathematically just improbable that that it was just a coincidence. Yeah. Now, the response to this is, well, here's the counter to this, right? The counter is, well, yeah, we admit that the universe that we live in is so finely tuned. Our solar system is so finely tuned. It's very improbable. However, there's a multiverse. There's an infinite amount of universes. Therefore, it's just, it's likely that we got one of the universes, right? If there's an infinite, there's going to be one of them just like ours. But it's like, okay, now you're just adding on to more universes to get a perfectly fine-tuned universe such as ours. You see what I'm saying?
What's your take on the simulation theory? Have you looked into
Hold on. I want to. What were we talking about that brought up the finely tuned? Like, why did you bring that?
I said it's a little too perfect.
Yeah. Well, but how do you explain that, right? Like, why finely tuned? Oh, and another thing too. Why haven't meteors hit us? Why haven't asteroids hit us? Dude, it talks about, what am I doing? Like, seriously, what am I doing? I'm getting like, no, but it says in Isaiah, I believe, it says that God sustains the whole universe. He's holding it up. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's governing the whole thing. I don't know. That's a good explanation to me. Like, why else has it not happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you were saying, how would you explain the fine-tuning of the universe?
One of them is the simulation theory, that we're living in a simulation in a sense, and how it follows is, at one point technology is going to become so advanced that it would be indistinguishable from our current reality. So then we would create another simulation, and everything is just someone simulating us in that sense. Like a previous civilization, their technology got so advanced, so great, that they simulated another world, which is us, and we're going to do the same. Mm-hmm. So then that begs the question, so then would that civilization be essentially God because they're simulating us in that sense?
No.
God-like?
No.
and then we simulate another one and we create the rules for that world. And then the theory follows, well, then what would the civilization before us was probably more boring than our civilization, because you always want to simulate something that's more exciting. That's why like we have like movies that are like, you know, superheroes and all this stuff, and like video games. So then we would simulate something more exciting. It kind of falls down this spiral, which would explain why things are so perfect.
Okay, then why would we have diseases? Why would we have diseases and suffering and evil in the world? Is that like part of the fun for the creator?
Perhaps, maybe it's a game. You know, we simulate, you know, like war and stuff.
Just curious. Well, no, I don't think this is true, because like this doesn't have the attributes of God. Still, it's not timeless. It's not immaterial, and it doesn't explain some of the things, right? You would just get to an infinite regress of creators, and that doesn't explain nothing. You just go, well, they created the simulation. Well, then they created the simulation. That created the simulation. They created the simulation. That created the simulation. That created the simulation. And infinite regress forever. And
so
it's
then
like,
where would base reality be?
What do you mean?
So if everyone, so there has to be a start.
If there was a simulation?
Yeah, there has to be a start. There has to be.
That's why I don't even think it's real, to be honest with you. You know, a lot of the stuff about AI and simulation, and I know people are going to say, well, what about Elon Musk? I generally don't think, I mean, I think it was, he's a public intellectual. What's his name? Noam
Chomsky?
I think he just said that Elon Musk Neuralink will not do what he thinks. Machines can't think. And I hold that same belief. If you really get into AI and you really study it and all this stuff, it's a bunch of, like, I know I'm going to sound uncool. They can't think. When you really get into what is consciousness, what it means to think, machines can't think. Now, the reason that AI stuff is happening, when you really get into it, it's they're machine learning, right? They're basically able to look at all these patterns, and we have more computing power that allows them to learn all this stuff a lot faster and analyze a lot more, which gives the impression that they're thinking, but that's not truly thinking. Like, you got to then ask yourself, well, what is thinking? And it becomes really complicated, because it's like, well, what is thinking? What does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be me? What does that mean? What does consciousness mean? But like, if you look at like Sir Roger Penrose, right? He worked on he worked on it with Stephen Hawking. What's the theory called? The unified theory. What is that theory called?
The theory of everything? The theory of
everything, yes. A simplified, unified theory of everything, right? He worked on it. He's a very smart guy. Sir Roger Penrose says that consciousness doesn't compute. Okay? That means that it can't be an algorithm. If thinking isn't an algorithm, well, then how can a machine ever be like us? I don't believe that machines one day are going to be able to think like us, no matter how much Elon Musk, Sam Harris, or whatever wants me to believe that. It just doesn't make sense. I have so many other professors and people who study this who I could cite them who don't agree with that. So the reason I bring that up is because the simulation theory, are we going to get to a point where the technology is that great? Is that like, I mean, why is that inevitable? Why is that necessarily true?
And well, at a minimum, it would be you don't think it could be very, very close? Like, maybe not exactly the same as humans, but perhaps very, very close.
You're challenging consciousness, which is really like
you can't duplicate perhaps what you're saying is you can't duplicate consciousness, right?
Yeah, you can't do that. You know the whole idea we're going to upload our consciousness one day? No, we're not. You heard that, right? That we're going to upload
I've heard of that. Yeah, I haven't done too much research on that.
We're not going to. It's not going to happen.
But I mean, you don't think you could get very, very close to a human?
I think that, I mean, yeah, you have more advanced video games. That's undeniable. I get that. But I'm saying to a point to where you cannot distinguish reality from fiction. I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's going to be possible because, like I said, when you think about consciousness and stuff like that, I don't see how that would ever happen. And the other thing too is like, if this is really the thing, then like we're in a simulation, then one, it doesn't answer, well, where's base reality, like you said, and it doesn't answer like, how come we never see clouds turning like, you know, like green or like, you know, some weird stuff that you'd see in a video game like glitches and stuff. I never seen that.
You haven't seen videos of like birds flying in place?
I've seen that, right? Or like the helicopter, or like the
Yeah. I think those are
dude.
probably
I just
doctored.
started. I was in my history class one day, and I was messing around looking at this stuff, and I remember I saw a car that was like standing on its nose, and I was like, what the?
Yeah. But I mean, you don't think that you could create something that will deceive all your senses into thinking it could be reality? Like think like I don't know if you've been into VR, right? You can tell that you're in a VR thing. But what if you had something that was like connected to every like nerve link in your body and it made you feel like you were somewhere else, but you were actually present? It doesn't necessarily change like your consciousness or anything like that, but it deceives your senses into believing that you're somewhere else.
So wait. If it doesn't change your consciousness, well, then wouldn't you have the knowledge that you're in a video game?
Perhaps, yeah.
Well, then why don't we have that?
But I
But
mean, what if,
the whole theory was we can't distinguish it. So how come we don't know then?
but like, what if you don't want to leave? You want to stay
What
in
if you
there?
want to leave? What if you want to leave? Then how does that work? I want to leave. I want to get out of this world.
I mean, unless you're forced against your own will, like, how would you? Yeah, I don't know.
But look, even if we have the simulation theory, it doesn't answer the questions of, um, you know, where did the universe come from? Or is someone going to say, well, is the universe even a real thing? Because it's just a simulation. Well, then what the heck, man? Like this is like just look. Put it this way: this is harder. This takes way more faith to believe than it does for anything that I'm saying. Like, there's no evidence to support this. It's literally all theory. Where you might say, well, God's just an idea too. No, it's not. There's actual evidence to support it.
True. But
You
you
see what I'm
wouldn't
saying?
say, would you say that there is like, you wouldn't say it's definitive, right? Or you would?
Definitive what?
Would you say it's definitive that God exists, or that Christianity is true? Is that 100% definitive?
How do you define definitive? Because
Like the evidence is so overwhelming that you can't cast any doubt on it.
well, no, I wouldn't say it's 100% like that. I would say that for me, yes, I accept it to be 100% sure, but it's not like, I think for me, I define definitive truths as like, you really exist, I really exist. Like we would both agree, right? Unless you're that
Yeah.
extreme skeptic in philosophy class that goes, I don't know if I exist. What a weirdo. But if that's the case, I'm never going to accept anything you say because you're not saying anything because you don't exist.
Right.
But no, it's not. I mean, I think. Can you hear that, by the way?
Yeah.
Must be annoying. I don't think it's like it clearly isn't definitive, because if it was definitive, then wouldn't everyone believe it? Like, wouldn't more people believe it at least? Right? So, but I do think, well, maybe they're just not searching for it then. That's a hard question, honestly. That's a very hard question.
Yeah.
I do believe you can cast doubts because people have doubts, obviously, and that's where debate comes in. That's why you have your questions, I answer them, or I have my questions, I ask them, someone answers. It's like that's what we do. So that would be casting doubts, right?
Yep.
So that's not definitive anymore, according to our definition, the framework we're given our.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I concur. Cool. Any last thoughts? I think we've been going for like what? A couple hours now?
Yeah.
Any last remaining thoughts from you, Elijah? Which Elijah is a character in the Bible, right? I read someone named Elijah, right?
Yeah. You want to hear a little story about that?
Sure.
Elijah was a prophet. Okay. Now people are gonna think I'm weird. I don't want to say this. Well, no, actually, whatever. So the weirdest story about my name, where it comes from, I'm named after the prophet, but Elijah was a miracle worker.
Was a miracle worker?
Yes.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, yeah. He since he was a prophet, he performed miracles to demonstrate the power of God.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Moses was a miracle worker?
Um, I don't think I would. I don't know if I would say he's a miracle worker. I mean, he did. He had God on his side. You know, he parted the Red Sea and everything. But
Yeah.
back to Elijah. He once healed a kid who was sick, who couldn't walk.
Yeah. Elijah killed a kid on accident?
No. Healed.
Oh. I thought you said killed. I was like, what?
No.
Okay,
But I
healed a kid.
think that's interesting. I think that's interesting because like literally that's what I'm trying to do is heal kids that can't walk.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing too is my mom couldn't get pregnant for a few years, and she was like, she said that this is her story. I just learned this like 3 years ago, so this is her whole thing.
Yeah.
But apparently she couldn't get pregnant. She had my older brother, but she couldn't get pregnant. She wanted another kid. This is so messed up too. But so she said that she needed to get closer to God. So she got closer to God. She started praying a lot. And then 3 years later, she was at the point she's like, God, just give me a kid. I don't even care if the kid is healthy. I just want another kid. Well, thanks, Mom. Seriously, thank you. But anyways, she said, and I'm gonna name him to glorify you. Okay, this is her story. Well, she had another kid, me, and since I was a miracle, she named me Elijah after the miracle worker. And I'm not healthy, so here I am. So yeah, that's the story of how I got ready.
Yeah, I was skimming through this and I saw your name. I was like, oh, what? Is there Brian in here?
I don't know. I don't think so, but that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. Interesting stuff. All right. Any last thoughts here before we wrap up?
No, I think we
talked about religion, everything. Jesus, aliens, a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
all right, cool.
That's all I got.
This was Conversations with Brian and Elijah. Thank you.